بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, we begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this gathering. And I would like to say my thanks to the NUS Muslim Society for this kind of invitation to speak about an important topic within our Islamic tradition, which serves as the root of our religion. That is the matters that are related to Islamic theology and beliefs. And this is a noble knowledge where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent prophets and messengers from the time of Nabi Adam alayhi salam to our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to preach Aqeedah, to preach Tawheed, to inform communities about who is their creator, the one who created the heavens and the earth. What are his characteristics, what are his attributes. Prophets after prophets Allah sent to communities to remind any human beings about their obligations towards their creator, that they are created for a purpose, and that purpose is to worship the one who brought them into existence. So this knowledge has been passed down since the creation of men, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Adam alayhi salam and the prophets after prophets, as mentioned in the Quran, and all the way to history to our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam brought this deen, this religion, to the people of his time. And the Prophet ﷺ conveyed the message, and the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, and they continued that message, and comes generations after them until we are today. So this is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah make us Muslims, that Allah bless us with Iman. And our Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned, Man yuridillahu bihi khayran yufaqihu fid din. Those whom God want goodness for them, God will give him the understanding of his religion, and God will give him tawfiq and hidayah, and bless him with his guidance, that he is able to understand the Creator, the one who brought him into existence, to understand his responsibility as a human being, to understand the importance of the messages of the prophets that came before him. So this is one of the biggest bounties that Allah can bless a person by blessing him with Iman and Islam. That is why the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, when they entered into the fold of Islam, they say, Alhamdulillahi ala ni'matil Islam wa kafa biha ni'mah. All praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the blessing of Islam. And this is the best of blessing that has made us sufficient in its essence of blessing that comes from Allah. So we take this opportunity to make shukr to Allah, and to offer our thanks and gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all of the guidance that Allah has blessed us with. And we are in a blessed day. Yesterday we were in Nisfu Sha'ban, on the 15th of Sha'ban. We just entered into the 16th of Sha'ban, and we are on the way into Ramadan. So we are in a blessed time where our prayers is answered by Allah. This is the time where our scholars mention it is important for us to supplicate and ask Allah for forgiveness, and ask Allah for every of our needs in dunya and akhirah. And we are at the doorstep of Ramadan. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with goodness in Sha'ban, and make us enter into the month of Ramadan. And I am pleased to be here and to come back to NUS. I was here I think 3 weeks ago. Alhamdulillah, it is a pleasure to be back and to meet all of you. And in reality, this kind of gathering, it makes me happy to see young people having this motivation and this curiosity to study about the religion. And these are the things that I look forward to to engage, and also to hear from the questions that you are posting and so on and so forth. So the topic of today is on Islamic theology. What is Islamic theology? And the names in our Islamic tradition, there are a few names with regard to Islamic theology. The famous one is the name of Al-Aqeedah. Al-Aqeedah Al-Islamiyah. The meaning of Al-Aqeedah is basically it refers to the faith. And then we also have a term that is called Al-Kalam, Ilmul Kalam. Ilmul Kalam is one of the names of this knowledge, which is knowledge of Islamic and theology. And the reason why it is called Al-Kalam, because last time there was a big debate pertaining to the Kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Was the Kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a creation or not a creation? The debates between the Mu'tazila and the Ahlul Sunnah. This happened in the past. So as the generations goes by, this name was tied to it. But at the end of the day, names are not important. At the end of the day, names of a particular knowledge is not any important. What is more important is the content of that knowledge. What is this knowledge is all about? So some people, they name this knowledge as the knowledge of Aqeedah. Some people viewed this is the knowledge of Al-Kalam. Some people mention this is Usuluddin, the foundations of this religion. And some people, they use the word Tawheed. So we have basically these four names. Sometimes it is called Aqeedah, Kalam, Usuluddin, Tawheed. But in reality, the meaning is the same. The meaning is the same. The difference is in the name. So what is important for us is to study and to understand what is this knowledge is all about. So what I did was I made a few slides. And I brought forth some definitions of this knowledge. And it is important as I think I mentioned many a times that for those who are attending our classes as Mr. Khalid, it is very important to understand definition, to memorize any definition. Because by understanding any definition, you will prevent yourself from making mistakes in thinking. Because sometimes we might perceive a particular knowledge is Aqeedah, but it is not any Aqeedah. A lot of people, for example, they got mixed up between spirituality and theology. So they go into spirituality and they thought spirituality is theology, but actually it is not any theology. Spirituality is a branch of theology. Tamam? Whereas in theology it is the roots of Islam. That is why some ulama mentioned Usuluddin. So before we go on to the definition, maybe I will start to speak about the significance of this knowledge before we go to the definitions. What is any meaning of significance? Meaning, if you look at the religion of Islam, the religion of Islam has foundations. It is like a tree. So you find, for example, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He speaks about kalima tayyibah, the kalima of faith, He said, وَضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا. He mentioned in the Quran, kalimatan tayyibatan asluha sabitun wa far'uha fis sama. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gave this example in the Quran, that the parable of kalima tayyibah, which is the kalima la ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah, this is the parable of a tree. It is a parable of a kashajaratin asluha sabitun wa far'uha fis sama. Kashajaratin tayyibatin asluha sabitun wa far'uha fis sama. It is like a parable of a tree where the roots are firm in the ground. So imagine you have a tree where the roots are firm. So normally when trees they are tall trees, when trees are tall the roots will also be in depth in the earth to sustain the tree from falling. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, and He speaks about this religion, He gave the parable of a tree, which is easy for us to imagine. So the roots are firm in the ground, wa farwa fis sama, asluha sabitun wa far'uha fis sama, and the branches goes all the way up towards the sky. So the parable of the knowledge of Aqeedah, this knowledge of theology, is like the roots of a tree. It's like the roots of a tree, the foundation of this religion, where this religion is built upon. So we can say this knowledge, it is like the foundation of Islam, and the rest is either we say part of the branches and part of the fruits of this tree. So from this example, we will be able to understand the importance of this knowledge. If this knowledge is the foundation of Islam, the foundation of religion, meaning if the foundation is weak, everything will become weak. If the foundation is weak, everything will collapse. So this is the importance of the knowledge of al-Aqeedah, or the knowledge of Kalam or Usuluddin or Ilm Tawheed. And it is the first obligation, as what we study, for example, in books of Aqeedah, in books of Tawheed. The first obligation that is compulsory upon every Muslim to study is to learn about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As what Sheikh Dardir, Sheikh Ahmad Dardir in his Aqeedah Bahiyya, he mentioned in the Quran that the first obligation is ma'rifatullah, is to understand who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So why the first obligation is to understand Allah? Because this is the foundation of this, the foundation of this deen. That Allah will not accept ibadah if the belief is corrupt. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not accept acts of worship if the belief is something that is corrupt. So for example, if a person, he does not believe in the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he performs his prayers will not be valid. His recitation of the Quran and he will not be given any rewards. Why? Because of the faith is not accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is an example when we say that if the roots is corrupt, whatever the branches that comes will also be corrupt. So the knowledge of theology, Islamic theology, is the parable of the roots or the foundations of a tree. The branches is a parable of jurisprudence. We study for example the do's and the don'ts. It is compulsory for us to perform the 5 times daily prayers. It is compulsory upon us to fast in the month of Ramadan. It is compulsory upon us to pay the zakah, to perform the hajj. These are the branches of that, the branches of that roots. That first we have to make our foundations of belief and faith firm. Then only we go to the branches of Islam in obeying and fulfilling the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then we have the fruits of this religion. You have the roots, which is theology. You have the branches which is jurisprudence. And the fruits of this tree of Islam is spirituality. And all these things is based on the hadith of Jibril alayhi salam. Everything that we mentioned from the beginning is a summary of the hadith where our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where our scholars mentioned this is a hadith of Sunnah, the mother of Sunnah. That is the hadith that is known as the hadith of Jibril alayhi salam. And Gabriel alayhi salam came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and asked him a few questions. I think a lot of you, maybe you have come across in this particular hadith. So he asked the question firstly on Islam, what is Islam? Then he asked about Iman. Then he asked about Al-Ihsan. So our ulama mentioned Al-Islam is the parable of jurisprudence. Al-Iman is the parable of Aqeedah, belief in theology. Al-Ihsan is the parable of spirituality. So as a Muslim, it is important, point number 1, when we seek knowledge, we have to focus and give priority to the knowledge of Aqeedah, because this is the foundation. Just like, for example, if you are building a house, you have to start from the foundation. What happens if a person builds a house and he builds the roof first? It's not correct. Why are you building the roof where you do not even have the foundation, nor do you have the structure of the building? So we will build the foundation, and then the foundation also must be something that is firm, sabit. Allah said, "Asluha sabitun." The Quran speaks about firmness, that we have to maintain firmness in our belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is very important, because firmness in belief is the key to success. Because life in this world is full of tests. How are we able to overcome any tests and trials that comes from Allah? By having any firmness in Iman, by having any firmness in understanding of Iman, and to have any Iman. So if a person wants to build a house, for example, and he says that I want to build a 20-story building, then the piling also has to be equivalent to the number of stories that he is making. Imagine if a person wants to make a 20-story building, but the piling is only 1 story. What happens? Very dangerous. The building will collapse. So today, with all the challenges that we have, as a Muslim, when we step out any from our house, or even any within any our house, with the social media any that we are exposed to, with the things any that we are seeing in the media, and the things any that we are hearing, whether we are in school or outside any of school, whether we are in society, whether in our house, wherever any we are surrounded any by a lot any of ideas. We are surrounded any by a lot any of theological any questions. We are surrounded any by a lot any of thoughts that surrounds any this aspect any of our belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And some any of the thoughts any that are something that is contrary any to the things any that we believe. It contradicts to the basic any principles any of faith. So what any should we do in order any for us any to equip any ourselves and to protect any ourselves any from such any situations? We have any to pay attention any firstly to attain the firmness in our belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is when we speak any about learning any this knowledge, not only any we are speaking any about learning the basics. No. Today it is not enough for you as a Muslim to learn the basics any of Iman. It's not enough. If you think any memorizing the 6 pillars any of Iman, to believe in Allah, to believe in the prophets, to believe in the angels, if you think any it is enough any for you any to protect any your faith any from all the challenges in your life any that you are facing, you are making any a big mistake, and that is dangerous. But it goes any more than that, because since any we are facing many challenges, we are facing any many ideas, we are facing any many ideologies any out there, whether it is within any Islam, out any of Islam, all these situations any that we are facing, all these things tells us any the importance any of us any to have firmness any in this knowledge. So today we are not only saying any the importance of learning any this knowledge, but we are also speaking any about the importance any of learning it in depth, in a way that we are able any to equip any ourselves as a form any of protection from the ideologies that surround us any into this time. And today many any of our scholars, they mention any that the time any that we are living, the need any for this knowledge is far much greater than the times any before. And this can be understood. If you are living any in the times of Imam Razali, situation any is very different. If you live any in the time of Imam Shafi'i, 1200 years ago, situation is very different. If you are a person who live in Baghdad during the time of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, you are protected any by the society, because society are the society where people any believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and people any encourage you any to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But of course they have challenges in the past. But today the situation any that we are in is such that the world now it becomes any like one city. The world any now is shrinking, in a sense that whatever is happening any in the far corners any of the world, it can come to you in a fast any time. That people can be influenced any on something that is happening in America. Maybe any within minutes, somebody any posted any in America any on something. People any in Singapore any can be influenced any by such any postings, or a film any came out video, and what you call Hollywood any came out any with some any videos any on certain any ideologies and certain things. We find any Muslims are easily any influenced any by the things any that they see any in the cinemas, likewise any in the radios, likewise any in the television, and so on and so forth. So today it is important any for us any to pay attention about the importance any of attaining any this firmness of Aqeedah, of Islamic any theology, so that our foundations any are firm. When our foundations any are firm, that is equivalent to the challenges any that we have any today, then only we can focus any on the jurisprudence. So when we focus any on jurisprudence, we are like any a building that the foundation any strong. So now we are going any to build any our structure. This comes any the goal any of learning fiqh, the goal any of learning jurisprudence. But at the end any of the day, the goal any is to attain the fruits, and the fruits any is spirituality. How are we able any to attain the closeness any to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? But you cannot attain spirituality if you do not have firmness any in Aqeedah. You cannot attain any spirituality if you do not have a strong jurisprudence. Yani, you do not have any strong any branches. You are unable any also any to attain spirituality. So the path any to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yani in summary, is to attain a strong foundation in this knowledge, and likewise in the branches of this knowledge, so that we attain the fruits, that is the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So going back into the definition of this knowledge, I mentioned here there are a few definitions. Okay. So this is the first definition by Al-Imam Aduddin Al-Iji. And this is mentioned in his book Al-Mawaqif. So he said, knowledge of Aqeedah, or knowledge of Kalam, he said, علم يقترب معه على إثبات العقائد الدينية بإيراد الحجج ودفع الشبه. So we have two aspects of this definition. Number one is knowledge that establish the tenets in your faith. The tenets in your faith. So as a Muslim, we say it is an obligation upon every Muslim to study the tenets in your faith. So there are certain things in our tradition of Islamic theology where it is fardu ain. We say it is compulsory upon every individual Muslim to study them. So for example, it is compulsory upon us to study about the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Allah has no beginning, that He has no ending, that He is not like His creations, that He is not in need any of others, and His existence is necessary. And He possesses, He is all-powerful, all-knowing, all-willing. This is compulsory upon every Muslim to study, and to study each of the definitions regarding the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Likewise, it is compulsory upon us to study about prophets. What are the attributes in your prophets and messengers? What are the necessary attributes? What are the impossible attributes? And what are the possible attributes? And then it is also compulsory upon us to study about al-ghaibiyat or sam'iyat, the things that comes after death, to believe in the unseen, to believe in angels, to believe in the jinn, to believe in the questions of the grave, to believe in what happens in Yawm al-Qiyamah, to believe in Sirat and Mizan. All these things we say is fardu ain. These are the tenets in your faith. So this particular knowledge, not only it explains the tenets in your faith, but it brings about evidences. This is what Imam Iji is saying. It brings about evidences. So not only it is about believing in the tenets in your faith, but also understanding the evidences behind those beliefs. And evidences in Aqeedah, we have two types of evidence. We have what is called as Dalil Aqli and Dalil Naqli. Dalil Aqli is rational evidences, whereas Dalil Naqli, these are evidences based on the sacred texts from the Quran and the Sunnah. So this is the first part of the definition. So the knowledge of Aqeedah is knowledge that establishes the tenets in your faith and is evidences both rationally and textually. And then he mentioned the second part of the definition is wadaf'u shubah. Wadaf'u shubah. And if we have this word shubah in the Arabic language, it comes from the word, what you call it? Sometimes it is mentioned as shubuhat. These are, we say, these are the things or ideas, or we say ideologies that are contradicting to Islam. How are we able to repel such ideas? How are we able to come forth with evidences to rebut? To rebut in a sense to protect our beliefs. Because there are certain things, for example, it can tarnish our faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So maybe let me give you an example. There are people out there, for example, they say they are Muslims. They believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they believe in Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But they say that there is a prophet that came after the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Clear? So this is shubha. This is something that is contrary to the Islamic faith. Because in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, مَا كَانَ مُحَمَّدٌ أَبَا أَحَدٍ مِّن رِجَالِكُمْ وَلَكِنْ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ وَخَاتَمَ النَّبِيِّينَ. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he is not any one of your fathers, but the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he is Rasulullah, the messenger of Allah, وَخَاتَمَ النَّبِيِّينَ, that he is the seal of all any prophets. And there are also any hadiths where the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, there is no Nabi, there is no Prophet, and there is going to come after me. But of course, in over history, we find there are individuals who claim prophethood. For example, during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there is this person by the name of Musaylama, known as Musaylama al-Kadhab. And then came many others, until recently the famous one is Ghulam Ahmad, for example. A person who was in India, who claimed any prophethood, and he claimed he is the Messiah, Isa alayhi salam, and so on and so forth. So our scholars, what they did was they bring forth any evidences from the Quran, evidences from the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to reject any disclaim, that this claim is not any within the Islamic any faith, that if a person believes in it, is not any considered to be a Muslim. So this is an example of a certain idea that can creep to within the Islamic faith. So the role of the knowledge of Aqeedah is to deter, is to rebut any false claims, any things that are contrary or contradicting the tenets of faith. It is explained by the virtue of this knowledge. So this is basically the meaning of this particular definition. The rest of the definitions that I mentioned here, it is about the same as what is mentioned by Al-Imam Al-Iji, but maybe we just run through some of it. You will find there is some consistency in those definitions. We have the famous definition by Al-Imam Taftazani. This is what in our classes in Masjid Khalid always I mention this definition, and there is a reason, because the definition is a bit easier. This is a definition of Al-Imam Taftazani and another scholar. He said, علم يقتدر به على إثبات العقائد الدينية مكتسبة من أدلتها يقينية. So there are also the two aspects within this definition. Number one is to establish the tenets in your faith, and number two is to establish the evidences that are based on conviction. And this is another thing about our Islamic theology, that all evidences are based on conviction. It is not based on speculation. Evidences in Islamic theology, and it's not based on speculation, but it is based on conviction. Conviction here meaning 100% conviction, not 99.9%. So this is the beauty of our religion, that when it comes to Islamic theology, that when it comes to the roots of our religion, it must be based on evidences that are based on conviction. So that is why we do not accept for example, hadith da'if when it comes to aqaid. When it comes to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to play safe, we do not accept, for example, hadith that is weak in its narration. So there are certain things in Islam, only evidences are based on conviction is accepted. And then Al-Imam Bayjuri explained. Al-Imam Bayjuri explained what is meant by Al-Imam Taftazani. He said, Al-Quran wa Sunnah as-Sahiha. The meaning of evidences that are based on yaqeen. It is the dalil from the Quran and Sunnah which are authentic. لِإِقَامَةِ الْحُجَّجِ وَالْبَرَاهِينَ. To establish sound proofs. Al-Aqliya wal-Naqliya. These are the types of evidences, rational evidences, textual evidences. Wa-shubuhat, wa-raddi shubuhat. Again, Al-Imam Bayjuri now explains, and this goes back into the definition of Imam Iji earlier, that is to repel the shubuhat. Any ideas that are contradictory to the Islamic faith. Okay, next one. Ibn Khaldun, and he mentioned something else. His definition is quite long. Basically, it is the same. It is the same as the definitions that we mentioned earlier. But he goes on further to speak about rebutting the innovators. Rebutting the innovators, meaning if there is anyone who makes a false claim again on Islam, and that is not within the Islamic tenets in your faith, or going against the Islamic tenets in your faith, this particular knowledge will explain where does this thing go wrong, what is the truth, what is the falsehood, and how we can differentiate from the truth and the falsehood. And all these things he said is to preserve the manhaj of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the theology that has been inherited by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, by the Sahaba and the Tabi'in and Tabi'in until today. So today our scholars they have this responsibility to preserve the deen that was inherited by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam left us for 1,400 years, but the religion that was brought by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the revelation that was given to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam by the virtue of the Sahaba and the Tabi'in and Tabi'in, and the scholars who came after them and wrote in their books, and we inherited those books and those teachings until today, Alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those teachings are preserved. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected this religion. That is why in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that He takes, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, نحن نزلنا عليك ذكرى إنا نحن نزلنا عليك ذكرى وإنا له لحافظون. Verily we have sent down to you this deen and this Quran, and we are the ones who will preserve the religion. And this is the beauty of our religion, even though for many years have passed, but the authenticity of the words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the teachings of the Quran, and the Quran in itself has been preserved until today, that we are able to get them. Okay. And then Imam Ghazali also mentioned about the same definition. He speaks about preservation. This knowledge takes the responsibility of preservation, that to preserve the Aqeedah of Ahlul Sunnah and to protect it. وَحِرَاسَتِهَا أَن تَشْوِيهِ أَهْلِ بِدْعَةِ. Again, it's about the innovators, because in every time there are people who tries to spark some controversy or bringing forth certain things that are contradictory to our religion. So it is the responsibility of the Muslims to study and to protect themselves from such ideas. So this is the definition of this knowledge of Islamic theology, and the reason why I mentioned a few of these definitions. You will get this consistent meaning. This consistent meaning that is mentioned by our ulama. That is point number one. It is to study the tenets in your faith. Number two, it is to study the evidences behind those tenets in your faith. Number three, it is to use it as a tool to rebut any false ideas. And again, going back to the time that we are living, as what I mentioned earlier, we are living in a very, very challenging time. As a Muslim, we are surrounded by many ideas, many ideologies, many thoughts that are surrounding our minds. And this is something that we find makes a lot of Muslims in confusion. Today, for example, we are facing ideologies not only within our Islamic faith, but we are also getting influence by ideologies outside of our faith. So the challenges that we are facing, again, this goes back to the importance of learning this knowledge, and that this knowledge as the foundation of our religion. So it is important for us to look at our Islamic education. Today, for example, if we understand the importance of this deen, the importance of seeking knowledge, it is important for us to understand the priorities in seeking knowledge, and to understand the syllabus. How are we able to go through this? How am I able to build any knowledge? How am I able to build my foundation? What are the steps that I need to take? What are the books that I need to study? And how do I study? And what are the fields of knowledge should I study? And what are the things should I begin? So these are the things that is important for us to know before we go in the path of seeking any knowledge, to understand the priorities on how we are able to build our foundation and our branches, and so that we are able to attain the fruits. So going back to the knowledge of Aqeedah, since we understand that the knowledge of Aqeedah is the foundation of Islam, and it is crucial and important and wajib upon every Muslim to understand the tenets in your faith, and fardu kifaya to understand those evidences and to rebut ideas. Now it is important for us to look at ourselves and ask ourselves, what is the level of our understanding in this knowledge? And this question is very important. In the previous lecture when I came, we speak about spirituality. Our talk is more about spirituality. We spoke about the different layers of the nafs, and the stations and the degrees of the nafs. How are we able to go from Ammara to Lawama to Mutma'inna, Radiya? But at the end of the day, we must also understand that the path to attaining this, again, it is the same thing. It begins by having the profound understanding in theology. And please remember this, that a Muslim cannot go anywhere if he does not have a profound understanding in this knowledge. You will not go anywhere. It is like, again, you are building a building that is weak in its foundation. If anything comes, it will collapse. And this is what happened in our society. You find some people performing prayers. They go to the masjid. They go they have any interest to seek knowledge and so on and so forth. But because they do not give any priority to this knowledge, what happens? After some time, they left seeking knowledge. They left performing of the prayers. Because why? Because the foundation is weak. When the foundation is weak, when a person is confronted with an ideology that confuses him, then what happens? He will leave the branches. So this is important for us again and again to ponder. So going back to the foundation, we have to understand how are we able to build a solid foundation. If we were to say, for example, this knowledge is important, that this knowledge is the foundation of Islam, that I have to get firmness in this knowledge, especially in the times that I am living. The next question will be asked, how am I able to attain this knowledge? What are the steps for me to take in order for me to build this strong foundation? So in the Islamic theology, when it comes to the syllabus of learning, our scholars they came out with a profound syllabus. Meaning, if a person is a beginner to this knowledge, then there are certain books that he has to study. And then after that, he built on the knowledge, one book after the other. So we have a series in your books, just like in fiqh, for example. Some of you study fiqh. Normally, a student in your fiqh, when they want to study Islamic jurisprudence, they study, for example, the book of Risal al-Jami'ah. And then after Risal al-Jami'ah, we have Safinatul Najah. After Safinatul Najah, we have Mukhtasar al-Latif. Even though in Singapore, maybe this book is not really known. But then we have Muqaddimah Hadramiyah. And then we have Abu Shuja'. We have Zubat. All these are books, meaning after a person completes one, he goes up into the next ladder. And this is important. This in Arabic we call it manhaj. In our Islamic tradition, in seeking knowledge, there must be manhaj. So that is why when it comes into the pillars of knowledge, there must be 5 things in order for us to attain knowledge. In order for us to ensure that the thing that we attain is al-ilm, knowledge. Number 1, there must be a teacher. Number 2, the pillar is a student. A student who possesses zeal to seek knowledge. Number 3 is al-kitab, the book that suits the level. If you are a beginner, you cannot be learning an advanced book. Like for example, like you are in NUS, some of you learning mathematics, in NUS, this level in your mathematics is not the same as it is in secondary school. A person who study for O levels is not the same as a person who take a major of mathematics in NUS. Is it at the same level? Different levels, different books, different syllabus. The student who is sitting in for PSLE, the level is different. The books is different. So meaning there is a syllabus. Our education system is such that when they want to introduce a particular knowledge to students, they make sure that there is a firm syllabus. A syllabus where a student can follow from the beginning till the end. And this is important in every schools, in every universities, in every colleges. When you major, for example, in chemistry, for example, there is a syllabus. If you enter into NUS, when you go into year 1, it's not the same as year 2. Year 2 it becomes more. Year 1 maybe it's more of introduction. The lecturers will give you an introduction to this knowledge, and then slowly you read about certain terminologies of the knowledge. When you go into year 2, then there is problem solving, and they expect you to think and to come out in projects and so on and so forth. This is the syllabus. So it begins from the beginning, and it builds that knowledge. So there must be a syllabus. Likewise, in Islamic and tradition, we also have such a syllabus. Not paying attention to syllabus and seeking knowledge, what happens? It makes everything collapse. For example, if a person wants to study fiqh and he study the book of Al-Majmu' of Imam Nawawi, khalas, and if we say he will collapse. And if he's a beginner, straight away you read the books of Imam Nawawi, Kitab al-Majmu', and you are exposed to 8 madhab. All the differences. In the Majmu' al-Imam Nawawi, when he speaks about intention and niyyah, intention in wudu, he bring 8 madhab opinion. So if a person is a beginner, he just want to know how I need to take wudu. Suddenly you give him the book, okay, now you have this 8 madhab, which one you want to choose? So he'll be confused. But if you have a teacher that guides, that tells you, okay, forget about, do not read any Majmu' now. Inshallah, after 10 years, you can read. But now you read Risala al-Jami'ah. This for you. Correct or not? So the book must be in accordance to the level of the student. This is pillar number 3. Pillar number 4 is manhaj. There must be a syllabus. So if you complete any Risala al-Jami'ah, which book should you go? Likewise in Aqeedah, for example. In Aqeedah, my opinion and my suggestion is to start from the book of Al-Mufidah. The book of Al-Mufidah, for example, by Al-Imam Sanusi. And then Al-Hafidah. And then Surah. And then Barahin. Sharah Barahin, like this. So this is what you call it? Part of the manhaj. Aqeedah Bahiyya that we use, for example, in Masjid Khalid, and it is the parable of these books. The parable of the first 3 books. So the reason why we chose Aqeedah Bahiyya in Masjid Khalid is because it is easy in the sense that it encompasses a lot of the things, because we are racing against time also in our weekend classes. But at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is that books in Aqeedah, we have a profound syllabus. And there are many books. I'm just giving examples. There are some of our teachers, for example, they prefer to start straight away Aqeedah. Some of our teachers, when they start teaching Aqeedah, beginners, straight away they enter into Aqeedah Bahiyya. For example, some countries in the Middle East, like in Jordan, for example, Sheikh Said Fouda, he used to say, for example, that he teaches any children in Aqeedah Bahiyya in the beginning. And that can be done, for example, in the Middle Eastern countries where they speak in Arabic. But in the Malay and Nusantara, we have to be a bit, slow, in the sense that because of the language and barrier and all these things. So that is why the Malays, they love Imam Sanusi. Al-Imam Sanusi, because his books was so simple, and they were translated into the Malay language 500 years ago. The Islamization of the Nusantara, this part of the world, the books that were introduced in theology are the books of Al-Imam Sanusi. And the books of Al-Imam Sanusi reach the Malay and Nusantara. And I always say that one of the reasons why the Malays love Al-Imam Sanusi, because Al-Imam Sanusi he was in Algeria. He was in Tilmisan. And then during his time, there was a great fitna. So there was so many confusion when it comes to this knowledge of Aqeedah and so on. Some sects of the Shia were there, some Mujassima were present, and so on and so forth. So he decided to write books for Lil Atfal, and he began by the children. So for example, he wrote a book, he named the book Al-Mufidah. This book he dedicated to Lil Atfal wa Nisa, and he mentioned that this is for the children and for the women. Then he goes on to write Hafidah, and he make it in a way that it is a concrete syllabus. So these books, when it came to this side of the world, in the Malay archipelago, the Malays find it easy. Because that time, I believe, Allahu Alam, maybe the Malays they thought they are new to Islam, and they find that these books are basic, easy, rather than the books of Taftazani, for example. Al-Imam Taftazani wrote books, mashallah, and it's so difficult. But the books of Al-Imam Sanusi are the books that are translated. You find many translations in Jawi. You have, for example, books in Jawi that is 400 years, 300 years ago. You have books written by Sheikh Palimbangi, books that are written by Al-Fatani, and other Malay scholars. So last time our ulama in this part of the world, they pay attention to manhaj. And today, and sadly, we almost any lost any our manhaj. I can say we almost any lost. Today, for example, I see there is a change. If I make any comparison any to 10 years ago. 10 years ago, any situation, and it was very dire. I was very worried any 10 years ago. Then we started our classes in Masjid Khalid. We started to speak about the importance of learning Aqeedah. To learn Kharidah Bahiyya, to learn, for example, even Aqidatul Awam, to learn Durusul Tawheed by Habib Muhammad bin Sheikh Abu Bakr bin Salim, and all these things. Now we see that there is some changes, but still it is not enough. We are still in need to revive this knowledge because of the great importance. And the importance of reviving the manhaj, this is another thing. So when we speak about learning this knowledge, we always have to pay attention to the syllabus. How we acquire the knowledge, what are the books that we should learn, how we can build our foundation. Because at the end of the day, we want to build our foundation. We want to make our foundation firm. So we have to put in our efforts to study this knowledge in a way that is in this accordance to the manhaj of Ahl-Sunnah and wal Jama'ah. So the books of Al-Imam Sanusi, the books of Al-Imam, for example, Ahmad Dardir, the books of Al-Imam Ghazali, the books of Al-Imam Fakhruddin Al-Razi, these are the books that we are looking into. So this is the manhaj. Number 5, when it comes into the pillars of knowledge, there is this thing our ulama they mention, Al-Bi'a Al-Ilmiya. Al-Bi'a Al-Ilmiya. It is the environment. The environment of seeking knowledge. That is the thing about the culture of revision. That knowledge requires muraja. Because the thing about knowledge, when you study something, you forget. Correct or not? You are in NUS, for example, if you are in the 4th year, maybe whatever you studied in the 1st year, you forgot. You studied, so you are in need to revise. We need to have this culture of revision. So that is why here comes the importance of exams, the importance of tests and exam, because it will motivate us to revise. So because we are in need to have this knowledge entrenched in us. So learning alone is not enough. We also have to have this culture of revision. So I mentioned all this to motivate all of you, and also to bring forth this importance of reviving this knowledge firstly in ourselves. How are we able to get the benefit of this knowledge? Because we are facing very challenging times, and that's what we mentioned, and we have to put in these efforts. And this is the first thing that we have to repair for ourselves. Just like when you send a car to the garage, to the mechanic. So the mechanic, when he look at your car, he said that, okay, there are a few parts that are broken, a few parts that are missing. The mechanic will know which are the priority, which is the thing that is the most crucial to be fixed. So if you are Muslim and you do not have any part or any what is the word? You do not have any share of this knowledge. Clear? You do not have any share of this knowledge, then you should be worried for yourself. Because when we speak about the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is the first thing that we have to make firm. So for example, let me give an example. Al-Imam Kushairi, he wrote a book, Risala Kushairiyya. This book is actually a book written in tasawwuf, in spirituality, tazkiyah. If you open this book by Al-Imam Al-Kushairi, and Al-Imam Kushairi he basically lived during the time of Imam Ghazali, it's about 1,000 years. This book in Risala Al-Kushairiyya, it is said, and it is one of the most important books in tasawwuf, one of the most important books in Islamic spirituality. And if you open this book, Risala Kushairiyya, in the Muqaddimah he criticized the Sufis. In the Muqaddimah, if you don't believe me, you read the Muqaddimah Risala Kushairiyya. I do not know whether it's translated to English. There is a very bad translation in Malay, which I don't recommend you, because recently we had the class in Masjid Khalid. There was a book somebody was showing me, but that translation is very bad. So some of the shops in Gelang is selling it, but I don't recommend you to buy it. But I do not know if you can find any good translation. For the English language, Wallahu Alam, I think there is a translation in the English language. If you read an Risala al-Kushairiyah by Al-Imam al-Kushairi, for your information, Al-Imam al-Kushairi is a big Sufi. He speaks about Islamic and spirituality in Risala al-Kushairiyah, but in the Muqaddimah he criticized the Sufis of his time. So this is ajib. And then he explained the reason why. What's that? Sufi, the term any Sufi, it comes from the word Safa. It comes from the word Safa. In the Arabic language, and if we say something that is Safa Yasfu, is something that is pure. So there is any knowledge within our tradition. The knowledge is called Tasawwuf. It comes from the word Safa. Safa meaning purity. Because this knowledge speaks about the importance of purification of the heart. The knowledge of Tasawwuf is about how are we able to purify our hearts. What are the fundamentals and what are the principles that we are able to benefit from that knowledge in Tazkiyatun Nafs. Yani to purify our hearts from all diseases of the heart. For example, diseases of pride, diseases of ostentation, diseases of having thinking that you are better than everybody else. All these bad diseases of the heart. How are we able to remove them? So this knowledge of Tasawwuf, it is different than theology. Knowledge of theology, we speak about establishing the tenets of faith. But the knowledge of spirituality, knowledge of Tasawwuf, speaks about purification of the heart. So the person who busies himself with this knowledge and with actions that purifies his heart, this person is known to be a Sufi. Clear, inshallah? So what is a Sufi? A Sufi is a person who gives preference and is known as a person who is inclined towards the purification of his heart. So they are named as the Sufis. So this is the meaning, basically the meaning of a Sufi. So knowledge of Tasawwuf is a knowledge that teaches us how to purify ourselves. The person who is busy in this knowledge are those whom we call as the Sufis. So Al-Imam al-Kushairi, when he wrote Risala al-Kushairiyah, he speaks about Tasawwuf. He wants to tell us the importance of Tazkiyatun Nafs. Because he said that this knowledge almost died during his time. Because of the love of dunya and all these things that's happening and the political turmoil that's happening during his time, that people forget about the important aspects of spirituality. So he decided to write Risala al-Kushairiyah. But in the Muqaddimah, he criticized the Sufis of his time. Because the Sufis of his time, they have deviated from the actual path. They have a misunderstanding about Tasawwuf, and then they do not study the knowledge of Aqeedah. So what happens? They fell into innovations. So he was criticizing the Sufis of his time. And then in the beginning of the book, after the Muqaddimah, if you open the Risala al-Kushairiyah, you will find he speaks about Aqeedah before anything else. And he will mention the reason why. He said that nobody can reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or attain taqwa and tazkiyatun nafs to the way that was taught by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, except that he dwell into this knowledge. That is the knowledge of Aqeedah. He brings for example, the examples of the great Sufis during the time of the Salaf. He spoke about Al-Imam Junaid al-Baghdadi. He spoke about Al-Imam Ma'ruf al-Karhi. He spoke about, I think most of these names you have not heard, right? But these are the great teachers of Islamic and spirituality to the Ummah. Today, if you read any books of Tasawwuf, you read books of Al-Imam Ghazali, you read Ihya Ulumuddin, you read the books of Al-Imam Nawawi, you will find they mention these names. Names of Ma'ruf al-Karhi, names of Al-Imam Junaid al-Baghdadi. Al-Imam Junaid al-Baghdadi is known as the one who established this knowledge. Just like Al-Imam Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari, he was the one who established his knowledge of Aqeedah. The one who established Tasawwuf is Al-Imam al-Junaid. Al-Imam Junaid al-Baghdadi. He gave the examples of these Imams in the beginning of the chapters. So he make it as an example how these Imams, they are known for their spirituality, they are known for their Tasawwuf, but when it comes to their belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what they say about this knowledge of Aqeedah, then you will be amazed, because they give the importance of this knowledge like no other knowledge. And basically, they are saying that before a person moves to the next stage, he must be firm in his belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So all these things will it inform us the importance for us to put in efforts to study in our path to attain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because at the end of the day, as what we mentioned in the last lecture, that the purpose of life is to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is to attain the pleasure of Allah. The purpose of our life is to attain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The purpose of our life is to make ourselves closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How are we able to make ourselves closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? This is the manhaj. This is the way. This is the syllabus. So we start off forming our foundation. In order for us to do that, we have to pay attention to the books. Correct or not? Because when it comes into the pillars of knowledge, books is one of it, syllabus. We have to pay attention to the books that we study. We have to pay attention to the syllabus that we are abiding with. We have to pay attention to the people who are teaching us. Correct or not? So at the end of the day, so that we get benefit from this knowledge. And this is the first thing that we have to make sure that we have equipped ourselves with. So I hope this lecture becomes motivation. It becomes like a kickstarter or a fire starter. That inshallah ta'ala we are able to understand this concept about the importance, not only about the definition of this knowledge, not only about the importance of seeking this knowledge, and also how to go about to attaining this knowledge, and then the other knowledges that comes after it, the knowledge of jurisprudence, the knowledge of spirituality. So at the end of the day, there must be a balance. There must be a balance, giving precedence to this knowledge above all other knowledges. And this is how we are able to take this path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ya jama'ah, it is with knowledge, al-ilm. Without any knowledge, a person will not reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala unless Allah guide him totally, in a sense that from the favors of Allah that is also possible. But the advice of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is talabul ilmi faridatun ala kulli muslim. That seeking any knowledge is compulsory upon every Muslim, and the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is by seeking knowledge. So today I spoke about the definition of this knowledge. I spoke about the importance of attaining this knowledge, and I spoke about the manhaj, the syllabus. And then we go back now into the challenges of our time. I mentioned just now that we are living at a time where the challenges that we are facing as a Muslim is far much greater than those who came before us. And I believe all of us agree to that. I gave examples just now because of the existence of social media, because of the existence of the internet, and everything that we hear and see, everything is in front of us. A person can be influenced by many ideas and thoughts just by sitting in his room. No need for him to go out. Last time when I was in the 80s, when I was a small boy in the 80s, in order for us to be influenced, we have to go out of our house. We are influenced by those people under our void deck. But today, when it comes to influencers, you don't need to go to the void deck. Because just by having a computer in front of you, there are a lot of things that people can get any influence. So when we are facing these times, this is the challenge to firm up our faith. This is the time to build our iman, because the trials of akhir zaman, the things that is unfolding, the prophecies that is unfolding before our very eyes, what is happening to Turkey and Syria, the earthquake that was mentioned by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and all these things are prophecies that speaks about the coming of the Mahdi, the coming of Nabi Isa alayhi salam, the sea of Galilee drying up, the sea of the Euphrates. You see, for example, all these things are happening. That the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that the river Euphrates will dry up, and there will be a mountain of gold and it will come out. Today, just 3 days ago, what Al Arabiya, I believe, they came out with a documentary on the Euphrates because it's drying up, and people play soccer now on the seabed of the river. So what I'm trying to say is that not only we are faced by ideologies, we are faced by the situations that we are in, but we must also understand that we are at a time where many of these prophecies are unfolding. And this is another knowledge that is linked to the knowledge of Aqeedah. So if you go back to the hadith of Jibril alayhi salam, just now I mentioned he asked 3 questions. There is a 4th question. Number 1, he asked about Iman. Number 2, he asked about Islam. Number three, he asked about Ihsan. And then number 4, he asked about something that is related to the end of times. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned, Antalidal amatu rabbataha, that if you see a slave woman giving birth to the slave master. And this has already happened. This has already happened in the 70s. Likewise, you see any Arabs yatatawaluna fil bunyan. Arabs fighting, challenging one another to build any tall buildings. This is happening until today. Correct or not? The tallest building in the world, and it's not in New York, it's not in the West, but it is in the Arab countries. So when we are facing these prophecies, this is another part of Islamic theology, where our scholars speaks about the knowledge of tahawulat. It is also important for us to understand the time that we are in. All these things goes back to tell us the importance of having faith, because the trials that is happening and the trials that is coming, the challenges that is coming is going to be worse than what we are in today. So as a Muslim, it is important for us to build our iman based on sound theology. And this is very, very important. Because for us to save ourselves from this tsunami of ideology, from the tsunami of trials that is coming, we need to have a firmness of faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And likewise, we also have to work on other knowledges, like the knowledge of fiqh, so that we understand how are we able to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and by this we are able to attain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the safety that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So today, for example, the challenges also that we are facing, we find for example, there are people out there who does not believe in the existence of God. We go out from our house and we find people who speaks about that it is okay for a man to marry a man. It is okay for a woman to marry a woman. Today we are exposed to ideologies where people are saying that God is a body, that He sits on the arash, that He is in a place. Today we are confronted also by an ideology of takfir within the Muslims, where a person says that if you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is not enough until you believe in the brand of Islam that we adhere to. Recently we have the boy who wanted to blow up this Maqam Habib Noor. This is an issue of theology. Why he want of all the things he targeted this grave of Habib Noor. He wanted to kill any Sufi Muslim and Shia Muslims, for example. This is something that is related to theology. We ask the question, why? Why any Maqam Habib Noor? Why any Sufi Muslim? Why any Shia Muslim? Because he feels that they are non-Muslims. They have gone out of Islam. Why? Then we will find out that he has some certain misunderstandings. He believes in the concept of the three Tawheed, that a Muslim who believes in the Tawheed and Rububiyyah cannot be considered to be as Muslims until he believes in the Tawheed of Uluhiyyah. And saying that the Mushrikeen during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, he believes in the Tawheed of Rububiyyah but does not believe in the Tawheed of Uluhiyyah. So as a result, he does the takfir to people who that is not within the same understanding and his understanding. And this is happening in Singapore, ya Jama'ah. So today, if you are influenced by such ideology, you are miskin. Because you are thinking that all these Muslims are kuffar. So he goes into the extent that he wants to kill them, because being an apostate the blood is halal. What ISIS is saying today. Correct or not? So all these things are some of the issues of misunderstanding in this knowledge can lead to serious consequences. So I can give many examples. examples any within any our Islamic any tradition, examples any outside our Islamic any tradition that has any connection any with, that has connection any with this knowledge. It's just that any I think any the time any is not enough. How many more minutes? 2 more minutes. Okay, 2 more minutes. What do you think? So let me give more any examples. Today, any for example, you have any people who call any themselves any Muslims, but in reality they do not believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have also any such any people who does not any believe any in Islam. And there are people any out there, for example, any believes that Islam, the religion any of Islam is backward. Correct or not? They have any this thinking any that we are living in modern times, that we are living any in the time of technology. So all this any teachings any of Islam any is backward. So they come forth any with many any of their own any theories and say any that the Quran any must be reinterpreted, the hadith any of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam must be reinterpreted because any, it doesn't suit any the time any that we are living any today. This is any also any part any of theology that we have any to understand how are we able to protect ourselves any from such any dangerous ideologies. There are people any who does not any believe any in any of the religion. There are people any who are atheists. There are people who are agnostic. They say that I believe any in God, but I do not know any who God is. So we have any so many ideas and so many ideologies any out there. So at the end any of the day, what is important any for us any Muslims? Point number 1 is to learn our theology, our Aqeedah firmly. This is the first thing. Number 2, we have any to learn the evidences. Remember this. Today we are in need any to learn dalil. Because it is not any enough any to learn Allah exists. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists. But it is also any important any for us Muslims any to understand the evidences. Because, for example, any you say Allah exists, suddenly your friend says that prove to me. Correct or not? And your friend any for example any wants any to confuse you, asking you certain any questions any that you cannot any answer. So today it is not any enough any to say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists, but also any we have to convince any ourselves any what are the evidences, what are the rational evidences, what are the arguments when comes any to this belief. Likewise, the textual any evidences, all these things any we are in need any to equip any ourselves. If you think any these things any are a lot, but in reality to protect any your iman, you got no choice. You have any to equip any yourselves. This knowledge and is far much important than what you're studying in NUS. With all the respect, any that the knowledge that you are learning, your knowledge any of science and is important. Knowledge any of medicine and is important. It's fardu kifaya, as what I mentioned in the last any lecture. But the most any important knowledge, Jama'ah, the most any important knowledge is this knowledge. So it is important for you any to have your share of this, of this knowledge. So thank you any very, very much any for your attentiveness. I thank you any for your time, and I hope any that this is any of benefit. I try any my best any to summarize any of the pointers. I hope it is motivating any for all of you, easy any to understand inshallah, no confusion, and we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of us in your guidance inshallah.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Zaman, for the insightful sharing. You now move on to questions and answers. For you guys have questions for us. The Slido number is 7421515. So you go to Slido up and key the number 7421515. Can everyone access it? Okay, one question. I will open the questions to the floor as well if anyone has any questions to ask Ustaz today.
Can we go this one? Okay, I saw this one question coming. The question is asking, Assalamu alaikum wa alaikum salam, how do we remain firm on our deen? What can we do to ensure our faith and does not waver? Again, that's what I mentioned. Number one, and it is to seek knowledge. Number one is to seek any knowledge. And number two is to practice that knowledge. That knowledge and it has to be profound. And it is important for us to pay attention to syllabus, manhaj, is what I mentioned, the books that we study. So do not any study knowledge here and there. This is the thing also I see like some youth and they are grappling and with this. They watch too many YouTube videos. I'm not saying that YouTube is bad. There are a lot of educational videos, and no doubt. But at the same time, also you need to understand. If you do that, for example, if you do not have a proper syllabus, and you find any yourself and hearing this, you might get confused at the end of the day. And this is usually what happened, because you do not know who are the people out there and uploading all these videos and so on. What is their ideas behind and so on and so forth. And do not go to too many lectures. Not a full stop. Do not go to too many lectures, but you do not seek the proper knowledge. For example, some people they say, "Oh, I want to go to this talk. I want to go to this talk. But when you ask them, for example, how do you seek knowledge? Say, no, I don't seek knowledge. I just go to talks. No, this is not how This is not how we should be in the situation that we are in. We need to be focused. If you speak about learning Islam, you have to follow the methodology. What is your methodology? What is the methodology? What are the books that you study? For example, just now we spoke about the importance of learning Aqeedah. Ask yourself, what is the book of Aqeedah that you have studied? If I were to do a survey, for example, how many, about 80 of you here, right? If I were to ask this question, what books have you studied? I do not know how many, answers that I can get. If you can't find any answer, if a person asks you, what books in Aqeedah you study? I say, I never study any books in Aqeedah. This is a big problem. That shows that you have not built any foundation. But you can tell me, but I watch many YouTube videos. No, YouTube videos it doesn't build a foundation. YouTube videos give you motivation. Like this talk is motivational talk. This talk is not really about discussing about theological issues. Correct or not? I'm just giving you an overview. It is meant to give you motivated so that when you go back, you reflect upon yourself. Then you say that, okay, now I want to seek knowledge. So this is the type of talk. So if you cannot find that kind of answer, that means you have to start now. And you are young. This is the right time for you to start. Don't think that you will start maybe when you are age 50 or after you pension and all these things. No, it's not the same anymore. Seeking knowledge, Imam Shafi'i speaks about the importance of young age. You know what Imam Shafi'i said? He said, Hayatul fata wallahi bil ilmi wa tuqa. Faman fatahu ta'limu waqta shababihi fakabbir alayhi arba'an li wafatihi. He said that the life of a teenager, al-fata, al-ilmu wa taqwa, it is knowledge and God consciousness. He said that those who does not seek knowledge when they are young, fakabbir alayhi arba'an li wafatihi. Do takbir 4 times for his death. Meaning, death, what death is talking about? Meaning when a person reaches old age and he failed to seek knowledge when he is young, he has wasted his time, as though he is a dead person. Khalas. He has wasted his time. So certainly we do not want to be like this. And your youth is a bounty from Allah. Remember this. Your age. I believe all of you are in the early 20s, right? Early in the 20s is a ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Remember that every minute, every day, you are getting older and older and older. I was like you at the last time. I was also at 23, 22. Now I'm 40 already. Old man already. Correct or not? But what I'm trying to say is that time moves very fast. You have to take the opportunity. If you don't take the opportunity, it will go off. So seek knowledge. This is my advice. Seek knowledge. Pay attention to knowledge. Spirituality can come later, inshallah. Now is the time to make firm your Aqeedah. Your Aqeedah is firm, inshallah, spirituality will come. When you do amal, when you obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the do's and in don'ts, in the commandments, then inshallah Allah will bless you with light. This is what Imam Sheikh ibn Ghaslan in Zubat he mentioned. He speaks about this methodology and seeking knowledge. So I hope that is easy for all of you, inshallah. What books in English do you recommend for us, university students who might be beginner, medium level? In the beginning is Al-Mufidah. I just translated Mufidah to English. So inshallah, if you want, I can do a class for you, inshallah. I did a class in Revamp, three days. is about 1 hour, 3 hours. No, very easy, 3 hours, 3.5 hours of your life. Correct or not? You can complete any one book, Al-Mufida by Al-Imam Sanusi. Al-Imam Sanusi, and he wrote any Al-Mufida. This book was in the manuscript. You know, my teacher Sheikh Khalid Zahri, and from Morocco. I visited him in Morocco. He was the librarian of the Hassaniya library. You know, in Morocco there is this library which they keep any manuscripts which date back into many hundred years. And Al-Imam Sanusi, and he was at that part of the world, so many of his works and he were preserved there. But strangely, the book Al-Mufida is still in manuscript. So what Sheikh Zahri and he did was he typed it into Romanized, into the Arabic, because the manuscript is the Maghribi writing, quite difficult to read. So what he did was he make it into a book. He typed it out, and I took his permission from him to translate to English. Alhamdulillah, I managed to translate 2 months ago. And then we did a dawrah in revamp for 3 hours. But there is something wrong with the recording. I wanted them to upload, but something of the recording. So inshallah, we want to do it again, inshallah. So this is the first book, Mufida. Number 2 is Hafida. Number 3 is Surah. Number 4, Barahin. So these are the 4 books, and I recommend you study. On top of that, there is also Farida Bahiyya. What's that? Warda, no. Inshallah, I try to publish, inshallah. Because it has not been published yet. Because it's still in PDF. If you want, I can give you the PDF, inshallah. The book Sheikh Hamza Yusuf translated. What is Aqeedah Tahawiyah? Have you read Aqeedah Tahawiyah? I recommend you buy Aqeedah Tahawiyah, very goodly translated, and you buy Sheikh Hamza Yusuf by Zaituna College. I believe all the books and he's selling. You can buy even Amazon on that book. We did that book 6 years ago in Masjid Abdul Razak. There's also some of my recordings on that. But usually our scholars do not begin with Aqeedah Tahawiyah, because Aqeedah Tahawiyah is not really any for beginners. What is best is that you start with the books of Imam Sanusi first, then you enter into Aqeedah Tahawiyah. Would you say that Iman is strongly linked to Aqeedah? If one Iman is weak, would you recommend them to start with Aqeedah? Okay, now let me explain the difference between Iman and Aqeedah. Aqeedah is a field of knowledge. Iman is faith. What is the difference? There is a difference between the knowledge that teaches you about Iman and Iman itself. There's 2 different things. Knowledge of Aqeedah teaches you about what are the things that is obligatory for you to believe in. To believe in Allah, to believe in the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what are the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what are the attributes of the prophets and messengers, to believe in the unseen and all these things. But when it comes to Iman is something that increase and decrease. When you obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your faith increases. When you disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your faith decreases. So Iman is faith. Clear, inshallah? Whereas Aqeedah is a field of knowledge. And it doesn't mean that if you study any Aqeedah, necessarily that your Iman will increase. But usually that is the case. Because Aqeedah protects your faith. It protects your faith. But there are people who study Aqeedah, but their Iman is weak, possible. Because they don't make any effort. There are people who have knowledge, but no prayers, no fasting, commit ma'asiyah and all these things. Their Iman is weak, but they can be ulama. They can be knowledgeable people. Possible, correct? Not? Al-Imam Ghazali, for example, in Ihya, he speaks about ulama usul. People who possess knowledge, high any knowledge, but no amal. Also, that is possible. How do we find a teacher? Wallahu a'lam. What you call it, a teacher? What is important is that he is able to teach the knowledge. It's just like, for example, if I ask you, if you want to learn maths, how do you find a maths teacher? You need to ask around, correct or not? Like there are people who are qualified to teach a particular subject. So you have to learn from people who are qualified. This is the thing. So if there is a person who is qualified to teach, then you learn from him. Would you say that Iman is strongly linked? Okay. Why has Aqeedah become a controversial topic when that even among Muslim communities? it is not taught. Some people see it as divisive. Pertaining to this question, you see there's a lot of confusion pertaining to this. Because any of the confusion, this leads to the question that you're asking. Because when people are confused, there are many things said about this particular knowledge from people who are not qualified to speak on this knowledge. As a result, it creates more confusion to the communities. So our scholars always say that when you have a person who doesn't know what he's speaking about, and he's speaking about a particular knowledge, what happens? He will not give benefit, but he becomes the reason for confusion. So when we understand the definition of Aqeedah, that's what we mentioned. That is why understanding definition is key. When we say that the knowledge of Aqeedah is a knowledge that speaks about the tenets of faith, and as a Muslim, it is compulsory upon every Muslim to study the tenets of faith and to protect his iman and to repel any ideologies that are contrary to the tenets of faith. This particular knowledge is of great importance and significance as the foundation of deen. How can this knowledge be divisive? If we say that this knowledge is wajib and it is very, very crucial that you have to possess it in order for you, not only for your hereafter, but to protect yourself, how can this knowledge become divisive? This knowledge is wajib, not divisive. The reason why some people thought it is divisive because they have a misunderstanding. They have a misunderstanding about the knowledge of Aqeedah that is not the knowledge of Aqeedah. So they have this misunderstanding because they do not know the difference between the definition of the knowledge of Aqeedah and the other knowledges. Does questioning about our religion can affect our Aqeedah? No. Questioning about religion does not affect your Aqeedah, because in the process of learning, you can ask. Actually, it is better for you to ask, because if you don't ask, the doubt is still in you. You see, there are people who are shy to ask. As a result, what happens? The ignorance is still inside. So our scholars mentioned there are two types of people who will not attain knowledge. Number one is a person who is shy. Number two is a person who is arrogant. A person who is shy, everything shy. He doesn't know he doesn't know anything, but shy to ask. So even after 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, the ignorance will still be there. Because why? Because of shyness. Number two, if a person is arrogant. Sometimes a person, for example, he doesn't want to ask because he's arrogant. So this also will not get knowledge. What books? Can someone with the wrong theology be a Sufi? Yes, because you see, Sufi is a person who gives any importance to tazkiyah, yani purification of the heart. So a person can be a Sufi, meaning he can speak to you about the importance of purifying of the heart and all these things, but he might have a misunderstanding in theology. Might have misunderstanding in theology. For example, you have people who speaks about the importance of purification of the heart, but they believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is inside the body of someone. For example. This brings a person to kufr. But he might be saying that he is a Sufi in a way that he is trying his best to purify himself. So there is, as what I mentioned, there is a difference between theology and spirituality. A person can work for spirituality without theology. Now even non-Muslims say they are Sufi, correct or not? Non-Muslims also say they are Sufi. You have for example, Americans who went to Turkey. They like this. What is the dance? They like whirling derby. They find peace in doing that. Correct or not? But they are non-Muslims, so they classify themselves as Sufis also. So Sufis has got nothing to do with theology in a sense, because it is a field where it speaks about purification of the self. Even any Buddhists nowadays also, some of the Buddhists also they claim to be Sufis. Which one is it? The bid'ah, is it? Yeah. Is it that? Yeah, the question asked, you mentioned about bid'ah. How do we know if the bid'ah is bid'ah hasana or otherwise? Al-Imam Shafi gave a good definition of bid'ah. He said bid'ah is of two types. We have bid'ah hasana and sayyi'ah. There is a good innovation and there is a bad innovation. A bad innovation, and he says that anything yukhaliful kitab wa sunnah wal ijma'. anything that go against the Quran, the Sunnah, and the consensus of ulama. This is bid'ah sayyah. But there are certain any innovation that is regarded as a good any innovation. For example, Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, the first any caliph, after the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he decided to compile the Quran. This is bid'ah. But our scholars any mentioned this is bid'ah wajib. Bid'ah also any wajib. Meaning if he has not compiled the Quran might be lost. Because during the time any of the Caliph Abu Bakr, there a lot of the companions who memorized the Quran and were killed in the battles. So he got the idea to compile the Quran, because during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the Quran is not compiled. So if a person says bid'ah is anything that the Prophet ﷺ did not do, no, this is bid'ah in the linguistic meaning. We have to differentiate between the innovation in the linguistic meaning and the meaning in the Islamic terminology. Because in linguistically, when you say bid'ah, is something that is new, something that is new, that is not preceded. But in Islam, we say bid'ah. This is the definition of Imam Shafi'i. It doesn't mean that the Prophet ﷺ did not do a particular thing. It's bid'ah sayyi'ah. There are a lot of things that the Prophet ﷺ did not do, the Sahaba did. There are a lot of things that the Prophet ﷺ did not do, the Tabi'in did. There are a lot of things the Prophet ﷺ did not do, the ulama did. So you see, some people, they create this thing where they say that the Prophet ﷺ did not do a particular thing, then it's haram to do. This is dangerous, because the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, this is not how they understood. This is not how they understood, because there are many things that they did. For example, Qiyamul Layl. Ramadan is coming, Qiyamul Layl in Jama'ah is bid'ah. The Prophet ﷺ never did any Qiyamul Layl in Jama'ah. Never did Qiyamul Layl in Jama'ah. But today the whole world is doing, even Makkah, Medina also doing, correct? Even in front of the Kaaba. And what do you call it in there? So this is a contradiction. How can we say something that the Prophet ﷺ did not do is bid'ah hasana, but the same people that he was saying they are doing any also the same thing. So when there is a contradiction, there has to be an explanation. So Al-Imam Shafi, our Imams, alhamdulillah, in the past, Al-Imam Nawawi also explained in his books. Wallahu a'lam bis-sawab. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ustaz Wan, for the profound knowledge and for answering our questions very well. Thank you, Ustaz.